Okay, couple more mini-series wanted to recommend. One of them is from last year. It's from Netflix. The other one's from HBO, and that would be the one I'd want to do after this one. But this is a Netflix miniseries that came out last year called Unbelievable. And I thought this, as far as limited series goes that Netflix has put out, is one of the best damn miniseries of 2019. I'll go out on a limb and say that. It's right up there with the last two that I talked about, When They See Us and Chernobyl. It's really, really good. If this is accurate, let me just say this first off. I'm not just wearing this because I like Seahawks. I live in Washington State, and this story primarily takes place in the states of Washington and the state of Colorado. And it's a true story about between 2008 and 2011, there were a series of sexual assaults, rapes that were happening. And they were having a very difficult time, evidently, catching the one responsible. And there were multiple women assaulted. The initial woman who was assaulted in this state in this miniseries is played by, the character's name is Marie Adler. I'm not sure what the real person's name was, but I'm more than positive that a lot of the situations and especially people's names have been at least partially switched around for, anonymity reasons and whatnot, which is understandable. But Caitlin Dever is the actress who plays Marie Adler, and she, if I didn't already love her as an actress, because the last thing I saw her in was Booksmart, which is an incredible movie, which you should see if you didn't. But she is a phenomenal dramatic presence in this. She is really, really compelling to watch. It's heartbreaking just to see what this girl goes through. And as someone who lives in Washington State, there were two things, or a couple things I noticed. One was, I doubt that this was filmed here, because even though it says it takes place in Lynnwood, Washington, because, let me tell you something. As someone who lives on the western side of Washington State, I live in a city called Everett, and Lynnwood is about 15, 20 minutes maybe about that way. And to me, it's where the mall is. It's where Target is. It's where fucking Cheesecake Factory, P.F. Chang's, all that shit is. It's the weekend place for a lot of people around here. At least until the whole virus thing. Well, unless you're DoorDash. But yeah, Lynnwood is not too far from me at all, like give or take traffic. And the reason why I say I don't think it was filmed here is because I don't think I recognized anything in here that looked like what I recognized from here. Either they filmed it in upstate New York somewhere, because I noticed like a little New York State Film Commission thing at the end there, which I'm not sure if that means they filmed it there partially or entirely, but it is also taking place partially in Colorado, which I'm sure there were parts of it that were filmed in Colorado, but there was nothing that took place in the show that was called Lynnwood that looked like Lynnwood to me. The one thing, though, that I did notice was the main character, Marie Adler. She works at this sort of clothing department store called Norris, and I've lived here all my life, and I've never heard of Norris. So it's not a real store. It's a combination of two stores that I can tell. It looks like a cross between Ross Dress for Less and Kohl's. The outside looks like Kohl's parking lot, and the logo kind of looks like the big, bubble letters that Kohl's has. And the interior, like the employees' outfits, and basically imagine Ross Dress for Less if nothing was on the fucking floor. If it was actually clean, and you didn't have, what do they call those guys that want to be security guards that walk around Ross Dress for Less? What do they call those dudes? They don't have any of them walking around, but it's basically a cross between Kohl's and Ross. That, and if this is accurate, then Lynnwood PD ain't shit. It's where all the problems with that case initially started. This Marie Adler character was sexually assaulted in the middle of the night. Then she gets questioned by detectives and police, but then the questioning it very quickly turns accusatory, and it quickly turns less into we need to find the person responsible for this, and they're spending much more energy uh, digging through minor, and I do mean minor, inconsistencies in her story, something that someone who was assaulted would very easily forget or slip up. And second would be that they didn't put as much effort as it seems like they should have. And other than minor inconsistencies, they spend way more effort into seeing, is this girl lying or not? I don't think she's being honest with us. You got these two middle-aged detectives who look like they just want to get on with their week. They don't want to bother as much with this as it seems like they should. And they seem less enthused about catching the rapist than they do about accusing this girl of lying. And they accuse her. They basically do what the fucking detectives and like to an extent, sort of what in When They See Us did. They badgered their witnesses so much into giving a false confession. Like, I'll tell you whatever the hell you want to hear just so you let me go. It's like, okay, fine, I'll say this happened if you just let me go fucking home and sleep and eat and drink some water or something. You know, this girl was not just assaulted, but humiliated and embarrassed by the people who could have swore was supposed to serve and protect her. Which brings me, that's just the first episode. The first episode pissed me off something fierce. But the second episode, the one that comes immediately afterwards, is a perfect representation between good policing versus bad policing. The second episode shows how to properly and efficiently and effectively handle a sexual assault situation. And the first episode is the polar fucking opposite of that and how you do not handle it at all. Second episode in Colorado, where the offender started traveling towards because they didn't catch him in Washington State. An actress that I've started really liking, Daniel McDonald, who I saw in a couple other Netflix movies like Bird Box and Dumplin'. I still haven't seen that one called Patty Cakes, although I heard it was really good and very funny. She plays someone who was assaulted too, and by humiliated, I do mean like humiliated. This guy didn't just assault this girl; he fucking mortified her. It's hard to watch at points. And the detective in Colorado, I forget the character's name, but another really good actress, Merritt Wever, who I thought was really good in another Netflix miniseries I saw recently, Godless. She, instead of the very accusatory, we've been noticing some inconsistencies in your story and we're going to run this over. Because the detectives here, from what they showed in the first episode, instead of, trying to slowly but surely get the vital information needed, they instead were like, we want you to run through the story with us. And she's like, I literally told you this shit 7, 8, maybe 9 times in a row. And they're like, yeah, well, we want you to tell us again. We need you in your writing this time because we didn't really believe you the first 8 times. But Merritt Wever's detective, when she's interviewing Daniel McDonald after she was assaulted, is like the polar opposite of that. She approaches every single question with compassion and with grace and softness and with a mellow tone in her voice and with always a strong emphasis on whatever you want to do right now, whatever feels best for you, whatever you want to say right now, that's fine. Whatever you want to do right now, that is entirely your decision. There are no wrong answers you can give. I am just here to help you as best as I can. And she was talking to her honestly less like a detective and more like a counselor or like a psychiatrist, someone who their job it is to put you at ease or to calm you before they start talking to you, like try to make you feel more at home. And the amount of better info they got from that approach as opposed to the first more, kind of brute way of doing it was far more effective, clearly. And the other detective, who I believe is also based on a real person, the character's name is Grace Rasmussen and is played by another incredible actress, Toni Collette. The real detective she's based on, I can't remember her name. I think it's Edna something, but it was based on a real detective who either solved or helped work on at least 100 plus different sexual assault cases in her career. So this is someone who knows her shit and who knows like the scum of the earth as far as sexual assault is concerned. Like she's sort of hardened herself because she's seen the worst of the worst. And that is where the story really picks up, is where Merritt Wever and Toni Collette's characters, they team up and they say, this didn't get caught in some other place, but it's moved down here, and we need to see where this goes, because one's from one different department and one's from another. Yeah, the direction in here is great. Not all of the episodes were directed by Lisa Cholodenko, but she directed a few episodes, and the direction here is solid. It's great. And I could have swore she directed this movie that got nominated for a bunch of Oscars a few years ago. Was it The Kids Are All Right? Was it the one with Julianne Moore and Mark Ruffalo and all them? It's like the one Oscar movie from that year I didn't see, but I heard was really good. Yeah, the writing is stellar. Susanna Grant, I believe, is another director slash producer slash writer on this, who's also done quite a few really good movies. It's not an easy binge watch, clearly, given the, understatement of the year, difficult subject matter, especially not only if you are a woman, but a woman and survivor of sexual assault, or someone assaulting you in any way, shape, or form. It's going to be a difficult watch. It's something like I can never say I know how that feels, because I obviously don't, but the best I can do is empathize and try to understand through the voices and actions of not just characters I see, but real people in not just documentaries, but stories I hear. You can't just shut yourself off emotionally to the world. You got to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes and understand difficult situations sometimes, and not just say, "Oh, I don't want to talk about that. That's too hard." It's like some things need to be put out in the open. And if anyone, particularly men, want to know why so many sexual assault survivors, particularly women, survivors of rape and sexual assault, so rarely come forward, I would suggest you watch this. And it might give you a hint or several as to why this is so hard of a thing for many people to do, not just after they get assaulted, legally speaking, but mentally and emotionally. Like, where does my life go from here? It's something that completely alters everything. The Merritt Wever's character in one particular scene, she kind of puts the hammer down and says, "I can't emphasize this shit enough. This completely fucks someone's life up. It ruins their self-esteem. It ruins their life in a lot of cases. It ruins their relationships with a lot of people, inadvertently or vice versa." It's just a whole bunch of nastiness comes out of ugly situations like that. That 8-episode miniseries. I was about to say 10, but I was thinking about another miniseries. 8 episodes for this, and they're all around an hour or so, or around near an hour. Excellent cast, just giving outstanding performances, particularly the 3 female leads. Caitlin Dever was just damn near made me cry, man. And it's a weird scene to say that almost brought me to tears, like Misty, but the scene where she's working in the store and she's giving out free samples to people. As someone who has not only worked in the food industry or as someone who's worked a thankless job before, I know how soul crushing that can feel when you're just sadder than sad or just depressed beyond reason, and someone is still giving you a hard time and you just feel like breaking down. And when she's like trying to hand out little samples of food to people, like holding back tears, it fucking crushed me, man. It was hard to see. Some things, when dramatically depicted, is especially when they're not, ladled on thick with melodrama or that thick layer of Hollywood cheese. Yeah, especially when it doesn't lay on any melodrama unnecessarily. It benefits all the more for that. And the actor who plays the detective from the Linwood PD in the first episode and throughout the show keeps answering calls like, yeah, we closed that case, there's nothing wrong with that. And then the very final episode, he gets a click on evidence and sees that the person that they closed that case on was not only actually assaulted, but that guy went on to assault several more. And the look on his fucking face. Man, I can't remember that actor's name for the life of me, but I've seen him in so many Netflix shows. I just saw him in Narcos, and I almost didn't recognize him because then he had a full head of hair and a full beard, and here he's like almost completely shaven. I was like, oh yeah, that is that actor. You know those character actors where you can't for the life of yourself remember their name, but the minute you see them in a movie or TV show, you're like, oh, damn, fuck, who is that guy? I know him. I do that so often. But as far as this goes, as a Netflix miniseries, it's a solid 5-star one. It's 5 out of 5 stars. It's absolutely, as a docudrama, it's something I kind of said about Chernobyl, but as a docudrama, it's damn near perfect. It's gripping. It grabs you with its story. It's very well made, well shot, well acted, well written, well directed. It's like damn near flawless across the board. I thought this was just an excellent drama. And one of the best original properties I've seen come from Netflix in quite a while. So if you are someone who appreciates true crime series, especially the Netflix ones that are done really, really well, and you don't have to binge watch it all. Trust me, it's not an easy go through. You can like do 2 episodes at a time if you wish, but it's definitely worth a good look, because as far as true stories go, and true stories rare for me that were set around where I live, even though it more than likely wasn't filmed around here, I could still feel the justifiable, anger and rage that this took place in my home state. And it pisses me off that something like this could slip through the cracks of law enforcement like this. And it did make news, and law enforcement around here, I believe, did catch some shit for it. But yeah, it's just a very vital kind of story and explanation as to not only why so many sexual assault survivors have a really, and understatement of the year again, but really hard time, not just post-assault life, but post-assault relationships, like mending things with friends and family, and the perception of you that's been altered among society, or worst case scenario, like the main character here, get accused of being a liar. And we all know the social pariahs that if you get accused of lying about a sexual assault, yeah, so it's, as far as a true crime story goes, it's one of the most harrowing and gripping ones I've seen in a long while. So it's absolutely worth a see. Stay safe, y'all.